Hi, everybody, and welcome back to MIAC's Artist and Scholar Dialogue series, where MIAC staff and curators are speaking with different artists and scholars about their work, the impact the pandemic has had on their practice, and just what they've been up to over the past year or so. My name is Lillia McEnaney, and I am an assistant curator at the museum. And today we're going to be speaking with Melissa Lewis Barnes. Melissa is a completely fantastic Navajo designer and hat maker, and I'm really excited to have her here with us today. But before we start chatting with Melissa, I'd like to briefly acknowledge the place where this conversation is happening, even though we are in a virtual space in Ogopoge within the Tewa world. As a non-native person living in so-called Santa Fe, I am a guest in the ancestral homelands of the Tewa people. And I wish to acknowledge all of the native folks, Pueblo, Navajo, Apache, and so many others, past, present, and future, who walk on these lands and live within these places. So Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to have you here today. I think this conversation will be really fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm excited to say hi to the world.
Yeah. So to start us off, for the viewers who maybe don't know you and your work, why don't we start with a brief introduction, who you are, where you're from, what you do.
Well, I'm Melissa, and I am a hat maker, and I know it's or a haberdasher. It's a rare art form. It was in the 1920s and 30s and 40s. It was everybody wore hats, and I more or less rediscovered it in my own way, and made it my own, and really kind of took the craft and made it more indigenous. I'm self-taught, so the art form of hat making, basically what I did is I reverse engineered how to produce a hat, and figured out all the components, and was able to come across the right equipment in order to produce a hat that was not only durable, sturdy, but looked good. And my goal in producing my art form is that I wanted to have a distinctive look. And so I've spent, 20 some years really perfecting that, and really thinking outside the box, and making sure that it has taste, it has flair, it has something that my clients I want them to be really proud of, the fact that they own a piece of art from me. So it's been a wonderful journey. It's I hate to say 20 years, but it's been 20 plus years. So it wasn't really an overnight success. It was a little bit here, a little bit there, and really kind of just finding my groove. So here we are.
Fantastic. So you said just now that you reverse engineered how to make a hat. Can you tell us a little bit about your artistic journey and what that reverse engineering process was like? How did you make this your own?
Well, I come from a ranching family, and we've always resided here in the Four Corners area. And my grandfather, being a cowboy, it was something that, I don't think I ever saw him without a silver belly hat on. And that's just, it up in this side of, northern New Mexico and southern Colorado, that was just the norm, 40, 50 years ago. And so that was kind of my first introduction into looking at hats. And then when I was in college, I came across a hat maker that, well, actually they came to me asking if I would do some, this is way back when, print modeling for them. And that was my first introduction into fine handcrafted hats, somewhat like handcrafted saddles and boots. Durango used to have a little bit of a just kind of an artisan community, and it intrigued me. So I rather than, at the time they couldn't afford to pay me. And so the trade-off was they knew my dad was a cowboy and my grandpa was a cowboy. So we traded hats. And that kind of became the relationship. And so that was kind of my first step into that working studio. And back then, it was just the guys that did all the building. And so I was doing some, catalog work for them, and selling for them, and just decided that I wanted to get my hands involved and dirty. And so I took a hat apart and figured out how to put it back together, all the ins and outs. And thankfully, my mom taught me how to sew. And so I was kind of doing Project Runway before Project Runway was even involved. I could look at pieces and figure out the patterns. And so I did that for years, just figured out things. And needless to say, looking at a hat, figuring out what sewing machines I needed, that came to me fairly easy. So needless to say, that hat company decided to move on to a different location. And this is years later, and in my late 20s, I decided to open up my own shop at the time here in Durango. My husband also is a craftsman, and he was building handmade saddles. So we decided, the two of us together, I would do the hats and he would do the saddles, and we would try to keep Durango as Western as we possibly could. So we did that for years. And we got married, had our kids. So our kids were kind of raised in our shop. And but really it was sourcing out hand wooden blocks, and I would find them in antique shops. I would find them just the craziest places. And word kind of got out that I was producing hats on my own. And I would get phone calls from, oh my goodness, people from Chicago, people from Denver, that would tell me these really wonderful stories about how their parents worked, if not did not have their own hat shops in Chicago, and they have all this hat equipment and they didn't know what to do with it, and would I like it, would I use it. And so I have a collaboration of hat equipment just from all these wonderful special places. And it kind of makes up the backbone of my studio, and so I have pieces that date back 1880, yeah, it really, I kind of feel like I'm a time capsule where I get to take this old world and really kind of use it the way it was supposed to be used, but use it with my own imagination, my own concepts. And so yeah, I'm kind of keeping haberdashing alive and well. And 20 years ago, I was maybe one of two women that were doing this in the whole country. And now there are quite a few females, which I'm kind of proud to say, that they've taken the reins, and they're just doing some really incredible work. And it's kind of, when you're hat building, it's not only a combination of sewing, but it's also sculpting. You're working with really intense heat, and you also had to have an eye as far as what the design and style is going to look like for the person. So there's a lot of different components that fall into place on it. And so it's fun for me. It's a challenge for me every day because every client is different. And so I never get to make the same project ever again. It may have a small reflection, but I make sure that everything is individualized for that one person. So yeah, that is basically me putting the pieces together on my end. And like I said, it's been a journey. It wasn't an overnight success. Really trial and error, and that's really what works, what does not work. And so for years, I just made basic cowboy hats and was happy with just doing that alone. And then I started experimenting with, let's do some cool beadwork. Let's really bring some color into those hat bands. And I'm the type of person that I like to have my hands involved, where as some hat makers will outsource. I felt that if I was going to have a vision, then I needed to be able to produce it. And so not only was I self-taught on the hats, but I self-taught how to bead on my own, to loom bead, how to, some of my hats have the braided edges, and that's a little bit of my husband's saddle building, watching him braid the cantles. And, he's got all these old books that I'll go back and I study and figure out ways that I can take that and incorporate it into the hats. And that was kind of step 1 and 2. And then I got invited to do a little local art show, like museum thing here in Durango. And I had always kind of had this idea about, man, it would be really cool to do a painted hat someday. And it was just kind of a matter of jumping in to buy beaver fur. It's not exactly inexpensive. And so I was afraid that if I jumped in, I thought, well, if I ruin a hat, I ruin a hat. And my husband said to me, he's like, well, if you ruin a hat, you ruin a hat. Just build another one. And I thought, oh, you're absolutely right. And so I had this idea of building a top hat, very, very similar to this. And I thought, it would be kind of neat just to do that top end and just see where that goes. And so I did some sketches. And so this design work here really kind of opened doors that I never thought I would ever get a chance to go through. And so with that one project, Santa Fe Indian Market basically came into my life, and the Heard Museum and the Audrey, and I've never looked back. It's just been one concept, one other idea after another idea, and it's been fun. It's been never a dull moment.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. That's kind of an incredible story. Going from modeling and trading hats, at a young age, your own kids growing up in your shop. That's kind of incredible.
It's crazy. Yeah, I just turned 50, and I think, like, gosh, what a fun life, and it's all been dominary here in Colorado, but gosh, we've had some wonderful times in Santa Fe, and Phoenix. It's been really interesting to just see where this art form has taken us, and when I say us, I say my husband and the kids, because it's just not a solo. It's, and I know every artist says this, is that, there's a lot of give and take, and so the kids are always up for, yeah, sure, we'll go to the Herd with you, Mom, or we'll go to Santa Fe with you, Mom. And so yeah, it's, so it's always we.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little about the pieces that you have with you here?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to show this one here. So this is probably, this is a really good idea of the type of work that I do. So not only is the hat hand produced, it's hand painted on the top as well as on the bottom. So everything is reflective. So when you're walking down the street, the goal is that people should, you know, whether you're taller or shorter, they're getting a really good view of something that's really unique. And then I always make sure to source out beads that match the design work as closely as I can as far as colorations go. And so you know, again, I wanted to make a statement. So when you walk into the room, people are turning to you going, wow, I've never seen anything like that before in my life. And it's been kind of fun to just hear different stories from clients from all over the country, all over the world, that may be wearing their hats in the airport, and they instantly are recognized. They instantly know I made it. Did you get that in Santa Fe? So it's kind of neat to to have a conversational piece, but for that client to walk around like, yes, you know, I kind of say it's like your wedding gown, you know, or something that it, but you know, they're just so proud of it. And I love hearing stories like that. And so anyway, so this is kind of a good example. This one here, I always want to showcase because this design, like I said, started it all for me. And it's won a couple, well, the first time I showed it, it got, what did it, no, it didn't get first. It was a different one that got first place, but I've had a couple of first place divisions at SWIA, and a second place at the Herd. And, but again, it just, you know, I want them to be distinctive, and no two hats are alike. They're I just tell people, I'm like, you know, I kind of feel like the hats already know what they want to be. I just get to facilitate it by putting it all together, you know. So needless to say, these are just some examples, you know, of what I do.
That's so interesting, you know, because you hear potters say that a lot, like that the clay knows what it wants, right? But hearing that about hat making is so interesting. And I just love the reflected paintings on that piece.
Oh, thank you.
On the top and on the bottom. That's such a unique concept. If somebody's really tall, you can just look at the bottom. That's just fascinating. So thank you.
Thank you. It's, you know, it definitely, you know, again, they really speak for themselves. And, you know, and with that, it's a process. It's about by the time you meet me and place your order, I'm looking at 8 to 9 months. And so, you know, you really build a relationship with your clients, and they really become part of your family at that point, you know, and as I'm updating clients, like, hey, I got your material in, I got your leather in, I found the right beads, you know, we are conversing. And then my best compliment from my clients is that they just let me do whatever I want to do. You know, I kind of give them a little bit of a taste as we're in the market. You know, I'm jotting down notes, and I'm like, okay, here are the colors they like. Here's where they're hoping to wear this. And then I'm taking all that information and just plugging it in. And we are coming out with something that's really unique. And so that is I think, the part that is, the most fun for me, at least, you know, is to put all that information in, and then they really feel like they're, you know, they are getting something they want, you know, and then they're letting me finish that race, and really making sure that it's something that is special for them. So
You sound like you have very lucky clients. Wow, 9 months. That's a huge amount of time.
it is a huge amount of time, and it's just too, because just to make a hat alone, it's about a 15 to 20 hour process. And so I've always got, and that's just the plain hat alone. So I've always got orders that are constantly going, that are in constant stages. And the hat building, I tell people, I'm like, I could build hats blindfolded. It's the little stuff that takes a while, and so I'm making sure that I'm right where I need to be before I start painting, and making sure that everything, all the kids are kicked out, husband's kicked out, everybody's kicked out, and because that is the one thing about fur felt is it's not forgiving. It's really porous. So as soon as you put that paint on, it is, there's no going back. It's a done deal. And so needless to say, it takes a little while, so I'll go through different stages. And typically I start on the underside and see where that goes, and then do the reflective top. And then when I'm doing a full crown, I'm basically mapping it out, patterning it out, and doing a layout first, just to see how that looks, and then going for it. So it's not ever a dull moment, ever. And then sometimes I'll do deerskin sweatbands, and then braid the back. It just really kind of depends on what that client's looking for.
Mhm.
And again, you're walking into my crazy mad world. Mad hatters,
Right. Oh, great. So I would like to switch gears a little bit and ask you about
Sure.
the past year. Um,
Mhm.
it has changed everybody's life, obviously, but I am interested if the pandemic has changed your artistic practice at all, or the way that you think about your work, or anything like that.
It has, first off, it's really brought to the surface how much I appreciate my fellow artists. Not seeing them since Herd of last year has been, I'm happy I got to see them, but gosh, not having that that interlude every 4 or 5 months. I always say you surround yourself with greatness, and my artist friends are just fantastic. And so not to have that, gosh, that's been really that's been tough, and even though we, Facebook and do social media, there's nothing replacing a good hug, and there's nothing replacing just a good conversation face to face, and so that's been the hardest part as far as my artist relationships. Secondly is, gosh, trying to figure out how to reinvent yourself so that your product is desirable. Having a flat surface connection with clients is different than having here, try this on, let's see what this looks like on you. Let's see, and so that's been a little bit harder for me to navigate through. And I've been able to figure out a couple methods that work out pretty well for me. But gosh, yeah, I miss meeting my clients. I miss sitting down with them. I miss, jotting down and just kind of even taking a quick sketch of them, and maybe a little photo of like, oh yeah, I remember that person, and and they're from such and such place, and here's where they want to wear the hat. Every person has a story, and I'm missing a little bit of that. Even though I get to see them, whether it's a picture or an email, it's just that it's not the same, and so that's been a little bit different. It also has forced me to have to get my website up and running. And I'm sure every artist is saying that. It's like, that has been, it's been good. I've always had a website, but being able to create something that is an easy purchase, So what I've had to do now is make sure that I'm building a lot of easy ship things like hat bands, for instance, or stampede strings that match the hat bands, or little accessories that I always bring to Indian market. But now I've really had to make sure I have a good inventory of them, just because then I can go, okay, so this is $100, $10 shipping, get it out the door type of thing. So that's kind of been a necessity in my life. And so yeah, even though I'm not at market right now, I'm thankful that all these other venues, like Indian Market and the Herd and the Andre, have brought this list of wonderful artists, that are showcasing. So that's, I've been basically trying to make sure that not only am I representing my work accurately, but making sure that my work is representing the museums accurately. I want to have that prestige, and for people to look at that and go, gosh, that looks like it took a lot of time, so that's been yeah, so it's been good for me to take inventory.
Yeah, that's so much. So many people, when I asked this question, have brought up the Herd. And, it's kind of incredible to look back on that. And we all just were so walking around happy, talking to friends, and then it was like the next week that it got really, really bad. And another thing that a lot of people talk about is the website, and just kind of having to start to market yourself in a new way and keep track of your own work in a new way. And kind of, in some ways, it's interesting because some of the power is kind of taken away from the gallery owner and the museum, and it's really up to you for how you want to market your work, which I think is kind of
yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to have that communication key, and it's I've thought about, videoing, and we've always had, film out there on how the hats are built and this and that. And I thought, well, maybe I need to pull that back again and just remind people that, it's not a store-bought item. It really goes through all these different steps. So yeah, it's definitely taken stock on what your product needs to look like and what you need to do to get out there, and being at my age group, I know a lot of the younger artists, this is the snap for them. They're like, I can do this in my sleep. But, for myself personally, I have to go back and go, okay, here's what I need to do, and so it's been fun re-educating myself, I guess, and this is just the world we live in right now. And and I'm optimistic that there will be a market. But at the same time, I got to be prepared in case there's not. And so I'm trying to make sure that I can do both ends right now.
Yeah, and that kind of leads really well into my next question, which is, so last week we got the announcement about an in-person SWIA for August, which is exciting. And I guess I'm just wondering, given everything that we've all experienced in the past year, where you kind of see the world of Native art moving as a result of the pandemic?
Well, gosh, that is a really good question. I think, gosh, I really think that artists are really having to search down deep and search their talents, as far as making sure that their work is outstanding in every way. We've been gifted this time to really outdo ourselves, and I think everybody complains about not having enough time. Well, guess what? We had time. So what I'm expecting when we all get back together is, gosh, I'm expecting some breathtaking moments, I'm expecting the first time I ever walked into the SWIA Convention Center and saw the Besta show. That is what I'm expecting from my fellow artists, because that's just the caliber of work they do. And so yeah, I'm expected to be blown away, by what everybody has been working on and what they've been visualizing. So it's going to be good. It's going to be not only a wonderful reunion on the artistic end, but gosh, it's going to be a wonderful reunion among us artists because, I miss everybody. They're like family. So yes, so whether or not, whether it happens in August, which I'm really hopeful it's going to, I know it's going to be a scaled down version. I know they're going to curate, again, our work that goes in. So if anything, I think it's really going to push us to step up even more, so we'll see what happens. I'd love to see everybody.
Great. So I think that's a wonderful, optimistic place to leave it, unless there's anything else that you'd like to talk to my audiences about.
No, I guess I guess what I want to say is I should thank our collectors that for a year, they have kept tabs on us. They have purchased from us. I've seen wonderful videos of clients that have taken videos of their artwork just to get the word out there, and just have done it all on their own. I always tell people, I'm like, the Indian markets changed our lives, and well, did for me personally. So it's thankful for the buyers, for seeing our vision and supporting us, all these years. So, and for venues like your museum and doing these collaboration pieces, because we're still here.
Yes, you are. Yeah. So thank you so much, Melissa, for a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat and show some of your work with us.
Thank you so much for allowing me to, and just have a wonderful rest of the summer, and hopefully to see everybody in Santa Fe or LA or someplace.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.